Hey, I know what you're gonna say. It's early in the season, and yeah, I know that, but come on. Let me have this, man. Let me have the opportunity to talk about three guys in the NHL who have completely just taken over the discourse of their individual fan base and their conversation. So, without further ado, we're going over three players here today that have been off to such a hot start, and it's a huge, huge breath of fresh air. Because these are huge bounces back that I think so many of the fans of all these teams can just absolutely cheer about, and even some of the fans of other teams, you know? You have stories from some of these players that involve other teams out there. You saw what happened with them last year, you take a look at them this year and you say, yup, that's a good story. Let's go, buddy. Let's talk today about the LA Kings' Andreas Athanasiou, the Detroit Red Wings' Bobby Ryan, and the New Jersey Devils' Jack Hughes. Now, the one that I think is the most interesting, at least in my own personal opinion, is Jack Hughes. Because last night we had ourselves a game between the New Jersey Devils, spoiler alert, that's the team that Jack Hughes plays for, and the New York Rangers. And the big storyline heading into this game was no longer the storyline that we had over the past year and a half, pretty much. Oh, it's the number one, number two overall rivalry, New Jersey versus New York. It's Hughes versus Kakko. No, that's not the rivalry we're talking about anymore. The new rivalry that was brought up by the media was the first overall pick from 2019 versus the first overall pick in 2020. It's no longer Hughes and Kakko, it's now Hughes and Lafreniere. And just a little quick aside here, Lafreniere has not really been up to the same amount of production as people thought he could have been up to, but again, it's early in the season, obviously. He has a whole bunch of time to turn things around and get his first NHL goal. But for Jack Hughes, he had already been through this tango before. In 2019-20, Jack Hughes was a guy whom a lot of people were somewhat disappointed about. Like, yeah, at 18 years old, he had 21 points in 61 games and a minus 26. Okay, that's not amazing, but the guy was 18, and he was the first overall pick. Like, you didn't draft Jack Hughes first overall in 2019 because you wanted him to become a superstar in 2019-20. You drafted him because you thought he was going to be that later. But because NHL fans overreact, because this guy didn't produce as many points as, let's just say, Kirby Dach, for example, people were like, yeah, he's a bust, man. Look at Trevor Zegras doing things in the NCAA. Look at Cole Caulfield doing things in the NCAA. Absolute bust, buddy. Yeah, that's not how that works, spoiler alert. But Jack Hughes, after being an NHL player for one season, took the majority of 2020 off and not actually playing hockey because, hey, he's part of the Devils. They didn't make the playoffs. The season paused in March. They weren't included in the return to play. And there was actually an interview done where we learned from Quinn Hughes that Jack Hughes, the younger brother of Vancouver Canucks defenseman Quinn, was indeed in the best shape of his life. He had bulked up, he had gotten stronger, he'd gained muscle mass, he became a different kind of player out there. And back when we had those conversations from Quinn Hughes and his quotes, we were like, okay, that's awesome, you know, I love hearing that Jack Hughes is going to be better next year than he was this previous year. I'm just looking forward to seeing by how much he's better, right? Like, that's all we really care about. We want this guy to improve. Some people were out there saying that before Jack Hughes made the league, he probably could get somewhere in the 50 to 60 point range just based off of his skating, his finesse, his offensive IQ, and more. But he wasn't anywhere near that, so we were like, okay, next year, 2020-2021 season, let's see what he does. Oh my gosh, this guy's out here. He's one of the top point producers in the entire league. He is currently tied for first in the entire NHL in points, in what is a 7-player tie with Mitch Marner, Taylor Hall, Jack Eichel, Travis Konechny, Thomas Hertl, and John Tavares, all elite quality players out there. And Jack Hughes, if we go over to the game against Alexis Lafreniere, the first overall matchup, he had 2 goals, 1 assist, putting his total point production at 2 goals, 4 assists in 3 games played. And yeah, the guy's been an absolute phenom, even when he's not scoring points. Everything that we saw about Jack Hughes at the NTDP that made him so great, it's slowly bleeding in. It's oozing into how he plays in the NHL now. And with the same qualities of finesse, skill, and deception that we saw with the NTDP in 2018-19. So for Jack Hughes, huge start, awesome to see. Quinn Hughes was right, the guy did indeed get better. And he's literally the top point producer in the entire league with like 6 other guys. So that's awesome to see for now. But on to the next player we're talking about. Let's go over to LA, coast to coast over here, people, and talk about a guy whom many Red Wings fans would probably be familiar with. Let's talk about Andreas Athanasiou, because this was a guy who was in a really weird spot during the offseason. He had been acquired by the Edmonton Oilers in a very big trade that saw the Red Wings acquire so many assets. And the Oilers went out there, they used him with McDavid. The theory was, speedy Athanasiou playing with speedy Connor McDavid would do speedy on-ice things. And while they were fast, they didn't really produce the same way that you would have wanted them to, and in the playoffs, Athanasiou didn't really do much. I mean, the Oilers got eliminated in the play-in round against Chicago, so there wasn't really an opportunity there for Athanasiou to show himself off. And everybody was kind of saying, okay, if Athanasiou, legitimately leaves, he's a free agent now, if he doesn't re-sign with Edmonton, the Oilers would have given up all this stuff for what was essentially just a week's worth of games out of Athanasiou. And lo and behold, he didn't resign. So he was a free agent. Everybody was like, okay, who's going to take a chance on this guy? The discourse came about from Red Wings fans that influenced other people out there reading about Athanasiou as to what actually goes on with this guy. Because sure, he has 30 goals in a season to his name, but he's a player whom you need to surround with very specific kind of players in order to succeed. And another big part is also just how Athanasiou was feeling whenever he plays the game. He was really inconsistent, despite having so much talent and so much speed. So when the LA Kings took a flyer on this guy and they signed him to a contract earlier in the offseason, a lot of fans were like, okay, this is a good fit. The Kings are a team that doesn't really have too much to play for in the moment. They have young assets, they have Byfield, Turcotte, Vilardi, etc. They're still looking for their new identity once the Kopitars, the Dowdies, and the Carters and the Quicks are all gone from this team. And if Athanasiou, he is in his mid-20s, can help out, then that would be awesome. Well, he's helped out a lot. So far, he's one of the top goal scorers in the entire league right now, and I know it's early in the season, I get it, but he is in a very big tie for third in the entire league with 3 goals in 3 games played. He's scored a goal in every game so far, and he's shown off very well some of the very nice assets that made him so attractive as a player back when he was with the Red Wings. The LA Kings acquired a guy who was very speedy. He plays on a line with Jeff Carter, and it honestly works pretty alright, just based off of what I saw last night watching LA Colorado. He also scored a goal in that one where he absolutely sniped it over the shoulder of Philip Grubauer. Oh my gosh, this guy is starting to show off the talent, that we thought he had back when he was a Red Wing scoring 30 goals in a year. Obviously, again, it's still young, but you'd rather see him do this than not do this. And being one of the top guys on his team, especially at a ripe old young age of 26 years old, there certainly is room for the Kings to go out there and use this kind of a player in a role where you don't really care how bad he is defensively or how much work ethic he puts in. As long as he's scoring a goal a game or a goal every 2 games, you're good. Speaking about Detroit, though, the last player we're talking about here, it's Bobby Ryan. We spoke about how Andreas Athanasiou is second or third in goals or whatever. Yeah, Bobby Ryan's first. He is first. He is up here, tied with Travis Konechny, who did have a hat trick earlier in this season, so he's up here as the first goal scorer in the league too. But Bobby Ryan, man, the comeback story is real. 4 goals, 3 games played. The Red Wings played a game without him. I know that. But Bobby Ryan is out here with one of the highest goals per game in the entire NHL. And considering the circumstances of what he went through in the previous year and a half, pretty much, this is an awesome comeback story. Obviously, what happened to him before, that's not awesome, but how he has come back, rejuvenated himself, admitted to the media, I came to Detroit for Steve Yzerman, and how he's meshed with Filip Zadina. Ooh, I love how that sounds, man. Filip Zadina out there passing, saucing it over to one of the better goal scorers of the past decade and a half. Things could not be any better for this situation here. He scored 2 goals against Columbus in the game on January 18th. He followed that up with another goal on January 19th, and he also had that Filip Zadina nice dish in the first game he played against Carolina. So yeah, early on in the season, man, Bobby Ryan is one of the top goal scorers in the entire league. He plays for Detroit, who many people are projecting to not really being all too great in the standings, but who cares? As I said in the previous Red Wings video, it's not about the standing. It's not about how many games you lose, how many draft picks you get, or how many spots you fall in the draft. It's the little things. The little victories, the little small things you can take a look at with this Red Wings team and say, man, that's awesome. That's awesome how Bobby Ryan is playing with Zadina. It's awesome how Larkin and Zadina are really taking this team into their own. It's awesome how Bernier and Greiss are playing, even though they're not winning too many games out there. Sure, they've won once, but you get the point. It's the little things, you know? All the small things that we can go out there, look at, and be like, yeah, man, that's cool. And Bobby Ryan being the top goal scorer in the league, like a week in, yeah, that's cool. So tell me in the comments what you think about Jack Hughes, his amazing start in New Jersey. Let's talk about Andreas Athanasiou, his rejuvenation in LA, and Bobby Ryan's comeback over into Detroit, being literally like the top goal scorer in the league. Tell me about that stuff in the comments below. Hope you enjoyed this video. Trolls 99. And bye.